In times of economic distress, we often hear proposed solutions like the Fed putting more money into the system or the government sending checks to households. But won't these policies lead to inflation? In this video, I want to talk about inflation and deflation and their relationship to these economic policies and economic recovery. Hi, I'm Craig and welcome to Market Power, where we look at the power of markets and economics to shape our world. And the question that I started off with was proposed to me by Austin Green and his Milton High School AP Economics class. So thank you, AP Economics classes. I hope that you have these types of questions, and if you're interested in me answering these types of questions, you can find me on Twitter, or you can put those questions in the comments below. Now, for longtime viewers of Market Power, you might notice that there's been this green balloon down here in this corner. This balloon represents inflation, and in front of it I've had this $10 trillion bill from Zimbabwe that represents hyperinflation. Now, I think when we start talking about inflation, people start thinking along the lines of Zimbabwe hyperinflation. And so I'm not worried about that at all with what's going on right now, but sure, we might be worried about inflation a little bit. But let me explain to you what inflation does and the bad parts about it and the good parts about it. I'm gonna start with an example that I think you can find pretty relatable, and that is buying a house. Let's say that you buy a house, and to keep things simple, we're gonna say the price of the house is $100,000. 1 year after you buy that house, the price has increased to $110,000. And the question is, why has the price increased in the past year? Is that because houses have increased in value, there's more demand for them, and so the price has gone up? Or is it because of inflation and just prices everywhere are going up? Now, honestly, it's probably a mixture of the two, but the reason why economists do not like inflation is because it distorts our understanding of value. If this was a full 10% increase in value, that would tell you that maybe you should be investing more in houses. If this is just a 10% increase in prices though, that doesn't really tell us about where we should be investing our money. So inflation distorts our understanding of value. So that's a bad side to inflation, but there is a potential good side for you, the buyer. Imagine you buy a house in 1 year and you buy it for $100,000. And instead of putting any cash down, you get a whole mortgage. So it's 100% debt, so you have $100,000 in debt that first year. Now, in the second year, the price of the house goes up to $110,000. But your debt also increases too, because you have to have interest. And let's say that that debt increases to $105,000. That means you could sell the house for $110,000, pay off that $105,000 loan, and you could have $5,000 left over. That means that you just got paid $5,000 to live in that house for a year. Depending on how much inflation has happened over the last year, of course that $5,000 isn't worth the same as it was 1 year ago, but it's still positive. You still made money living in that house. So a good part for some people is that inflation reduces the real value of debt on us. So that's inflation. Now let's think about deflation. Now, deflation has the same bad aspect of inflation in that it can distort our understanding of values. We don't know why that price is decreasing, but it has the opposite effect on debt. If you have debt, deflation increases the real value of that debt. For instance, think about this house again. You took out that $100,000 loan, and the next year it's worth $105,000 of debt. But now the price of your house has gone from $100,000 to $90,000. Instead of the price increasing by 10%, it has decreased by 10%. Well, you have that $105,000 loan, so if you sell that house for $90,000, you still have $15,000 left to pay off that loan. That loan is more burdensome on you because the price of houses has gone down. I think it's pretty easy to understand the effects of inflation and deflation when we look at houses, but the housing market isn't really our biggest concern right now. What we're worried about is this economic turmoil that is causing a decrease in business activity around the world. And to solve this, the US Federal Reserve is thinking about putting more money into the economy, and the government is thinking about sending out checks to everybody. Isn't that going to be a cause for inflation? Let's think about what's going on in the world today and whether we're worried about inflation or deflation. What we're worried about right now is a decrease in demand. People aren't spending as much money. When people don't spend as much money, of course they're not buying as many things. Now businesses, they can cope with this a little bit. There are a few costs that they can control when people aren't buying as much stuff. But there are some costs that are fixed that they have to pay. Like a business might have rent that they pay on their building. They have to pay that whether that people are buying from them or not. And so if people don't buy as much stuff, profits are going to go down because businesses have costs that they still have to cover. Now, if profits go down and you can't change some of those costs, like the rent that you pay on your building, you're going to have to adjust in other places. And often that adjustment happens with labor. You're going to have to reduce the hours that people work, or you might even have to lay off some workers. So you have unemployment. Well, if you have unemployment, you're going to have a further decrease in demand, which is going to get people to stop spending money, which restarts this problem all over again. Now, this decrease in demand could also lower prices. But if prices go down, that means that businesses aren't making as much money for each service that they provide, and that still is going to drive down profits. So we're still in this spiral, even if prices go down. In fact, if prices go down, again, deflation, this can actually create this whole spiral to begin with. So we want to know what happens when the Federal Reserve puts money into the system or when checks get sent out to individuals. If you're an unemployed worker or your income has recently gotten down and suddenly you get a $1,000 check, you're not just gonna stuff that thing under your mattress. You're gonna go out and buy more stuff. As you buy more stuff, business profits increase. And as business profits increase, they need to hire more workers. And of course, hiring more workers is gonna lead to more people with jobs, more people with income, and more people buying stuff. And this cycle goes through the positive way. Things start going well. But of course, this increase in demand is not just affecting the quantity of goods sold in the market, it can also affect prices. So won't this lead to inflation? In the long run, yeah, we can see inflation coming out of this. But in the short run, prices are pretty sticky. And so it's not like prices are suddenly going to increase at these places that were on the brink of failure. People are going to spend that money, prices are going to be the same, we're going to see a greater increase in output, and the economy is going to benefit from this. As this money works through the system and over time, yes, we'll see these prices adjust and we can get inflation in the long run. But that's not what we're worried about right now. We're worried about keeping this economy running. In the short run, monetary stimulus like this can actually work. As I said in a previous video, this is actually a pretty clear-cut case for sending money to families. Families will have that money to weather the economic storms, and you're not encouraging bad behavior. It wasn't bad behavior that caused this in the first place, at least not bad behavior on the actions of individuals. This was a freak pandemic that possibly could have been prevented by further government action, but not because individuals did not act when they were supposed to. And so sending money to families is actually pretty clear cut. You'll have a boost in economic activity, the threat of inflation is pretty low, and the opportunity to fight off deflation is even a stronger reason to send this money out to families. I've actually put together a whole playlist on videos that I'm making about the crisis and helping us understand the Federal Reserve and government policy, so go ahead and check that out. Also, check out some of my other videos to try and get people interested in and excited about economics. I hope you subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.